allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes of the previous meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the agenda, anything to add?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Kevin.
Okay, first of all, project updates. Graveling is done now on Ramsey 9B, Hamden East. I just finished that yesterday. It's good work. And the Benson line, and he hasn't, very close, I haven't started that. Once he does, that'll go fast. It's like 3 miles from gravel, it's less than 10 miles away. So. Any questions on the gravel project? We did finish all of our bridge work, took the rental units back, and so that's done for the season. Any questions on bridges? The truck road, they did put, go ahead.
They all worked out all right?
They did, that was probably one of our better years as far as the flow and everything, the water was, work helped us. And, after all the rain, we still been able to work through all the water. Yeah, good chance to look at it, it's probably one of our better years. Okay. Truck route, they did get some gravel hauled onto that. They still intend to use it for hauling some more, so it's not done, but it's a lot smoother than it was, so they're able to use it for harvest now. There's still a couple of rough spots, but it's way better than it was. So if you get a chance to drive it, they're still, they know that they still have to do more to do.
All that work that was done last year was, are they gonna redo that or replace that or?
Yep, they're gonna, through that really bad area, that stretch from the curve to the pit,
Right, that low area
that
there?
lower area there, they're gonna put all new material on,
Okay,
all new base
so that
material.
base stabilizer, yeah, good.
But the condition that the road is in right now will be the condition that it'll be in going into harvest time.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a couple of bad spots where, they're not bad, they're, you notice them when you hit them, so they may put some more gravel in 2 spots, but the rest of it, they're not ready for harvest. But they're aware of it, they're gonna keep an eye on it. If I tell them they need to fix them, you know, if the grain trucks are making it worse, they'll fix that too. And then probably towards the end of the season is when they'll, after they're completely done, then they'll put that base stabilizer back.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We kind of put the, ad in the paper for mowing our road ditches again, so we need a motion to, I can read this ad if anybody's interested. I've probably all seen the picture for it. We didn't change anything.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advertise mowing of road ditches. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
And they're still planning on having a local roads conference in Rapid City this middle of October this year, so I guess just plan ahead. The registration is about, there was $100 last year, and rooms are $200 for 2 nights, and then of course the cost of the gas to drive there and back. So if they go ahead with the convention, I'd like a motion to approve the out-of-state travel.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the out-of-state travel. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
That's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions from Jack? Seeing none, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Okay, quickly into unfinished business, COVID-19 discussion. I'm sure you got the email or have the information on your desk, and Krista can kind of, if you'd like to kind of inform us what the survey results said, and kind of go from there.
Everybody, you guys have a chance to look at it, review it? Okay. Yeah, so it was our 41 employees participated in the survey. It was sent out to the rural and Benson County social service employees also, but I didn't gather that a whole lot of them participated, just that the responses I didn't. So, but yeah, otherwise, it was kind of, I don't know if you had a chance to read through all the comments, it's kind of mixed. Employees felt. So. I don't know, like HR directors for the county association has now put together a meeting, and we're all meeting next week on some of the different COVID topics to discuss what they're gonna do, like with different counties, what they're doing with their employees when they have the school issues, and these schools will have a closure, have a plan in place. So just different things like that that we're gonna discuss.
And I think that, I guess in my opinion, after reading it, yeah, like I said, it's mixed. There's some positive, some negative to it, which is to be expected, I suppose. You're not going to get everything perfect for everyone. And the one thing that I think is important, at least in my mind, of looking at it and asking the questions about the school portion, is the flexibility. Because I sat through the back to school thing for St. Joe's last night. We had a Zoom meeting, and I would assume the public school structure is very similar because they're going to model it, I'm sure. If there's positives in the school, we're going to have to be prepared for, having somebody not be able to come and work possibly the next day or overnight for 3 days, or, depending on how the flexibility of the hybrid learning is going to get kicked in, stuff like that. So I just think the flexibility of us as an employer is going to be really important too.
And I know there were some comments about like putting the plan in place after after the reopening. However, they have to I'm trying to remember too, the information was so fluid from the first day we started with all of this things that they changed quite rapidly.
Yeah. Is any questions, any comments, thoughts? Just good. I thought it was just good to get feedback.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. See where we're at together. Nicely displayed.
Okay.
Touchless hand sanitizer
Yes. Which
dispensers.
is nice.
Only
Yeah.
took 4 months, but.
And they've had it for a while.
Uh-huh.
Is there one on each floor? Is that what I saw, or?
I don't know well, we only got 10.
Okay,
So there's 2 by the front door,
okay,
front doors. And then I think there's 1 by each elevator
okay.
and then each employee entrance.
Yeah. That makes
And I'm
sense.
not sure
That
about
the
the
elevator
memorial
entrances,
building yet.
because then people can then they can touch the buttons in there. That's a tough.
And we put signs up saying that, we would like you to, when you enter and exit, but I don't know if it's maybe something that needs to be mentioned on coffee time now that we have it.
And we still have the fact that the chairman can make decisions on the fly, right? Adam?
Yes, I prefer not to.
As things do change.
Yeah, and it's, we're seeing the numbers every day. I mean, it's actually kind of leveled off somewhat from the Ramsey Benson area, but it's been a lot of numbers and really more about that area. Well, it's have to kind of keep our eye on it and see how things move forward, I guess. All we can do. Watch it. Things don't go crazy in the next few weeks here. We're not kids going back to school and everything starting around back up again. Okay, further discussion or questions, anything to add? none, I guess we'll move on. Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate it. Okay, discussion on November election. I wanted to put this on simply because we've been getting a few questions about it, and I visited with Candy about what her plans were. And just so everybody's informed as to kind of what the plans are going to be. So if you are getting questions or, just so everyone's informed more than anything, what Candy's looking at right now. Take it away.
Try not to spend a lot of money. We're going to borrow the sneeze guards, the plexiglass things from different offices on election day to try to save dollars. So they're roughly now like $200 a piece for what we need. The other thing is I'm going to reach out to county employees to ask them to volunteer on election day to help clean, sanitize after people are done voting in voting booths. We've ordered pens so that when you get your ballot, you're going to get a pen that's for you to take. I found it on Amazon, so that was only like $150 for pens. And then, what was the other? Following Century Code, 2 weeks prior to election, we are going to extend our office hours till like 7 o'clock for people to come in and vote absentee. We're going to be open Saturdays. I haven't set a time frame yet, 9 to noon or something like that. And I'm going to, strongly encourage people to, vote by mail or, so that we don't have large crowds gathering on election day. We have the space, in the gym, so I'm not really worried about, it's just to, keep everybody apart, and those who are comfortable will wear masks, and those who don't won't. So that's kind of where things sit now. We do have a conference call every Friday now until election to hash out different things, and so it's a lot of moving parts in a short period of time.
And remind me again, you said last presidential election we had 2,800 people voted absentee, something like that. 2,300 people voted on election day in person. So I guess the thought process is to try to spread those 2,300 people out. Try to, if they still want to vote in person, try to, say, we're going to give you extended hours. Come in early, get your vote done, so you don't have to stand in the line.
How are we planning to get the word out on that to everybody? Just sort of remind them that, hey, if you're driving past the courthouse or if you think of it, just come in.
An official paper.
Paper doesn't get to everybody.
Radio.
I think the radio would help you take the
Use all the
Radio,
all the
our
means
website, our Facebook page,
Every way we can get it out once we finalize the plans is kind of the idea.
Yep.
Any way we can get it out to people, just to tell them there's going to be extended hours and I guess in my mind the goal is to get everybody the opportunity to vote on it, obviously unenfringed. And if we can get that 2,300 people down on election day down to, half or something like that, or 1,500 or something. That way, just so you don't have so many people coming through on that day. that, and then we're asking people to volunteer to, you know, run the machines and all that stuff, then there's less contacts for the volunteers too versus our normal staff. So,
Do we need to open up the polling site to everyone yet? You know, like that would alleviate some traffic coming through the memorial building?
A majority of the voters that direction and the age group, they love voting by mail. I mean, you know, we've got calls already, you know, with, oh yes, ladies, we're at coffee, you know, we were talking about it, you know, and I just want to miss out on it, so, you know. It's,
Cass County's adding another site. Burley County is adding another site.
well, they're adding big sites.
They're
There's
adding
some
big-
subtracting sites, actually.
Yeah.
Cass County's going from 38 to 6. But they're putting them into large, all those small locations into limit to one large location to just try to conglomerate it as best they can.
I haven't heard of other counties, I guess.
you know, some are struggling to find a larger place to, you know, like some of the smaller counties are struggling to find.
I think Grand Forks County, if I remember reading correctly, they eliminated all of their outside sites and they're just doing everything through the LRs. Just because of, you know, they can just, it comes out to simply a staffing issue, I think, for most of these counties too. I mean, it'll be a staffing issue for us as well. We rely on, it's not volunteer labor, they're getting paid, but it's essentially volunteer labor. So.
And because it is, you know, first time with using all of the new equipment, I did put in a request to the, like, tech support to see how much it would cost to have someone in person that day. Just to, you know, help with whatever is needed.
Offhand, do you remember how many voted in Edmore at the last election? Do you know? Last time.
Under 50.
50?
It was like almost 3 times, like, because there's a formula to figure out like how many dollars it is per voter. And theirs was almost triple.
Well, the population of Edmore is only like 260 total people now, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Becoming smaller and smaller by the year.
I think it'll be fine with the memorial building. That's what everyone is used to, everyone is.
How many years is that closed out there?
I know it's probably 3 elections anyway, that's my guess, or maybe not 3 4-year elections. 2 anyway.
It wasn't open in 14. I know that
When
one.
you got on,
When I got on, it wasn't open ever.
it was open when I got on.
So it might have been 10 or 12, somewhere in there. So it's probably been a decade.
It's working out. But we've never been in this situation before either. We can keep 100 or 200 out of the memorial building. That's significant too.
I think it'd be interesting to see how many, I mean, because, excuse me, you can look at the precinct tallies, and that precinct, 4 is the whole north tier, and you can see how many of those people actually came and voted at the memorial building versus voted by mail. It'd be interesting to see how many people, I mean, because they're probably so, you know, in tune to voting by mail now that having another site probably wouldn't even help because they're just used to do it.
How many people did we have work the election at it? You remember, Andy? 3, 4?
there's probably 5 or 6. 5.
You think those people are, do we have the ability to find people to do that? You know, they're not up there? Can we find them here?
I'm struggling even to find people to work here.
How much are we paying?
$15 an hour.
Should we double it? Use COVID money? Would that help? Or wouldn't it make a difference?
So I don't know the answer.
What would be your hunch? I'm not trying to tell you what to do, I'm just trying to give you some ideas.
I don't know that, you know, making it $30 an hour is gonna attract. You know, I think it's just the whole word COVID that has people,
Oh, I agree with you 100%, yeah.
you know,
Do we need to pay $30 an hour to get people to take a chance to come in and work the, you know, election right here in the Memorial Building? I believe we do.
If we pay more, maybe we might get some younger people who would be willing to come in.
There you go.
I mean, it's possible, I don't know. Never hurts to try, I guess.
And definitely add to the pool.
Definitely would add to it.
No, absolutely.
We should go and maybe think also about dividing up how people come in and out of the building.
that's already in the plan.
Already in the plan,
Yep,
you know.
in one door, out the other.
We, in one out the other, and then we were talking about, Candy was talking about getting some of those, I don't know what you call them, stanchions, separator things, so that it'll be a straight line, and you'll have to just flow through the line, and that way we'll be able to keep everybody separate, and one person in at a time to go to the lines and everything.
Like a petition.
Yeah, like you have.
Something more than just a rope.
I don't know, right, petitions or more, but it would be kind of like those.
Kind of like what you walk through in an airport. You know, something
And
to
then
that.
you could do that 6 feet apart and everything, and do what you're supposed to do.
Put lots of signs up,
Yeah, lots of-
distance, keep your distance.
And you could put X's on the floor, just little X's or whatever was tape that people know they're supposed to stay 6 feet apart. All we can do is try our best to inform people and tell them, you know, be safe as we can, get through quickly, and
We open at 7, close at 7. That's
We
correct.
open at 8,
8.
close at 7.
We can't open earlier than 8, 8.
Well, you can open at 7, but
We can't. I don't know.
an hour wouldn't.
It would make a difference if you had good organization within the gym, you know, line thinking.
And with the new equipment that we got, like, people shouldn't have to stand in line
Very well.
forever in a day to wait for them to feed through all the paper, because it's all electronic. All you do is set your driver's license up there, they hit scan, it pulls all your information up, there's a series of questions that they have to ask you. And then once you hit accept, it prints out a piece of paper, you hand the piece of paper to the voter. That voter takes it over to the next table, they read what ballot they get, and here's your ballot and here's your pen, and off you go.
Quick.
I think it's gonna be pretty slick, it's just a matter of.
I know Jager, he's advertising on the TV and the radio for, you know, go by mail, do it early.
That we're still gonna provide the drop boxes and stuff like that if people don't want.
Well, since our building is open, we're going to do a drop box like out in front, or the entryway of the courthouse.
Okay.
So that we have eyes
Okay.
to see it.
But we can tell people, you know, if you don't wanna, if you don't wanna drop that ban, you can always come back.
And I can check with the city too, you know, if they'll allow us to use their drop box for after hours.
I think that'd be super, yeah, since it's
Yeah.
secured. I think that's reasonable, just anything we can to make it as convenient as possible to allow people to get their voting done, and like you said, try to push the vote absentee, vote early, during our early hours, or vote by mail, so we can try to get as many people through before election day. And we will keep people safe as possible. Other than that, it's gonna be It'll be different, but it'll still be election day. Always has been. Okay, any further questions, I guess, for Candy on that? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Oh,
Does one stamp, if I was to mail it, does one stamp get it through the post office, or do you get extra postage or something?
It's a forever stamp,
Like 50 cents.
50-cent one won't. Because I think they say, well, they tell us that it costs one stamp to mail it.
So do you?
It's like 69 cents to mail
For that heavy?
So do you pay the extra postage then, or how's that work?
it. We had to set up an account, yes.
So everybody put 2 stamps on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I don't like it. It's a little bit postage.
Just one thought on that, it has been confusing in the past. I know it has been because on the rural route, they'll sometimes bill us for the extra amount.
Yeah.
And so it is really confusing,
Yeah.
the way this postage thing is set up on those ballots. And I don't know if it's the size or it's the weight. I've heard it was the size.
I think it's the size of the
The
envelope.
odd
Now,
size, but
we've changed, now it's a different size, so now instead of coming like oblong, now it's gonna come like this.
so I've been dropping them off in person because I just don't want to deal with the postage.
Well, and too, like, you know, if there's postage due, some carriers will just deliver it back to you, and they're not supposed to do that. It's just supposed to come, and, you know, we have money in the, I mean, we don't get that many. We don't get that many. I mean, you know, maybe the whole election, you know, like one election process, we maybe get like 15, 20. It's not, you know, it's like 12 cents here or something, you know, so it's, you know, and ones that there's some that they don't, they actually put our I voted sticker as the stamp to mail it back. I got that a few times, so.
Nice.
But, yeah, I think it is a little, I would just wish that they would just put a dollar amount instead of whatever it says, please post proper postage or something like that.
Maybe just put on there, please use 2 stamps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or some people will probably use postcard stamps or something.
I know, I know.
Okay, other discussion. All right, something to mention. Okay, we'll move on. Report on CARES Act dollars for law enforcement. Candy's got a total that we put in. I don't have it in front of me, so she's not telling.
We had to submit the county's portion of law enforcement payroll through the months of, starting March through July. And we have a dollar amount of $267,980.87. And we'll be submitting it again in October, I believe,
And that's
or August and September.
And that was just strictly payroll, or does that include payroll taxes? or-
Anything that the county pays for. So salaries, health insurance,
Salary,
anything
retirement
like that.
benefits, all that
Yep.
stuff is all included in that.
Vehicle, cost of vehicle, no.
No, just wages.
Yeah,
Just wages.
strictly wages. And anything that involves keeping somebody employed.
And that was March through July, I heard.
That was March through July.
Did you have the health insurance too? No.
Yep, that's included in there. Yep. And then, like I said, we'll have to do it again in October for the months of August and September.
And 3 below,
I believe so.
over 19 below.
I hope so.
We're all looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, campus.
About 53,000, right?
Roughly.
So we can expect probably about another 100,000 on top of that for the second. Okay, when do we know, when do we know if that's coming or not coming?
This was just submitted last week, so I haven't gotten an email stating, they said it would be a quick turnaround, but
If they put it on post.
no, it'll come like ACH.
Direct deposit.
Yeah.
Quick is always the
Carry
subject.
that over next year. We'll-
Could be a week, could be a month, I mean, depends on what's roughly.
We'll find somewhere else.
Yeah.
I just thought we'd put it in a beer fund.
This will pay for the cameras, it'll pay for,
No, it's extremely helpful. So all told about probably what, 350, 400,000?
I'd say you're 375.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on how the months of, August, September shape up.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's a big infusion of cash. Okay, very good. Further discussion on other questions?
I think it was just a way for the state to spend their COVID dollars. Basically.
Yeah, I think they were trying to find ways to help the local. That was an easy reimbursement structure, essentially.
We should look at potentially using some of that to pay down bond debt. Since I've been beating that word drum for 4 years now.
Figure it out, huh?
Would be a good way to use it. And you're saving the county money and interest.
I thought you said we were gonna have a $267,000 charge or something.
Yeah, I thought better of that.
3 new deputies next year.
Yeah, that's probably what's gonna go, to pay for the 3 new deputies. Can offset the cost. Okay. Then I guess we'll move on. Recommendation from the Home Rule Charter Committee, and I will let Lucas talk about that.
Sure. So the Home Rule Charter Committee had its public hearing on the 13th in the gymnasium. It was lightly attended, but we did get some good discussion out of the whole thing. And at the end of it, the Charter Committee felt fairly unanimously that the document as written should be put towards the County Commission with a recommendation that we put on the ballot again in November. So I guess that's all.
What's light attendance?
6, 7.
How many
Six.
from outside?
You mean from like
Six.
outside?
Me?
Outside.
Why did-
Well, I don't know who was there. I don't know who else
No,
was there.
it was like,
The committee and then
Six.
6 or 7 is.
Okay.
So the committee and then an additional 6 or 7. Give or take. I guess I didn't take a head count, but yeah. that's probably
Six.
ballpark. The gym was set up for lots of people. We were all nice and spread out, but not a lot of people.
Are you open for discussion right now, or?
If you would like to.
What's the procedure?
Procedure as in.
I say, I'm just asking.
Well,
Is
the chair
it- is
chair
it
just
time-
has to recognize you, that's.
I'm just asking if it's time for discussion, or were you, what was?
Discussion as a, yeah, I mean, it.
As to the, did you make a motion yet?
No,
You just-
so essentially where we're at is, so the recommendation was made by the charter committee following the hearing to recommend to the county commission to put it on the ballot. At this point, the commission can discuss whether they would like to follow that recommendation to put it on the ballot as is, whether they would like to make an adjustment to the charter and put it on the ballot, or whether they would like to decline the recommendation and not go to the ballot, essentially.
So you're making, what is your motion? Are you making?
We don't have a motion at this point. We're
So
just in the discussion stage, but if you would like
So
to
you
chime
can
in.
discuss before you make a motion?
Of course we can, yes. Well, we don't technically follow Robert's rules.
Okay, I was just, I don't want to be out of turn.
No, if you would like, and I forget your name.
Well, I was one of the people that attended the meeting, and I thought it was a good discussion. And I enjoyed the back and forth of the discussion. And I was enlightened, I thought, quite a bit on different topics. And I guess one of them was that a lot of the counties do one of these home rule charters for a targeted purpose. And Lucas and Adam mentioned that there were different places that, you know, you would, for a specific purpose and a specific reason. But this home rule charter, to me, is just a complete, total overhaul of how the county commission operates. And I don't see it necessary for a total remake of how the county commission operates. I think you guys have been doing a fine job. We elect you to do the work. And if we don't like what you do, we can vote and have someone else take your place. I look in this particular document, and if there's something that you do that we don't like, then we can have an initiative, and it takes time to collect signatures and get it on a ballot. And a year later, we vote to revoke something you've done. Well, by then we can have another vote and change you out as a commissioner. So it seems to me the way we've been operating hasn't been a problem. It seems to me we're able to address all the problems that have been come before the commission in a good way, in a fair way. People come to discuss things with you, and you listen and make decisions, a rational, reasoned decision made by the 6 or the 5 of you. Just about gave you a job.
Yeah.
But to me, I look at this document and I think, okay, if there really is a problem with the way we operate as far as taxes, my understanding is we're quite a ways away from our cap yet on property taxes. So it was presented as, well, it's a tool for the toolbox for the future. And I think, well, I have the toolbox and I have lots of tools, but I don't have every tool. And maybe someday I would need a tool, but I'm maybe going to borrow it, but I'm not going to have a fancy, shiny tool in my toolbox that might never need to be used that could cause problems in other areas. And one area, though, that I thought made a lot of sense, it sounded like, as far as the budget's concerned, that you could be able, with this, to transfer money from one area to another and maybe levy taxes in some area. And I'm not big on levying new taxes or other types of taxes necessarily, but it might make a little sense from a landowner or a property owner's point of view to transfer some taxation to somebody that uses things, you know, more than others. And I know there's kind of a taxpayer revolt in that way. So this document to me could really be more easily targeted just to the revenue and the budget process. You know, it doesn't need to have a complete overhaul where you have initiative and referendum. To me, you're just opening up an initiative process that I see happening in our state and in other states, California to the extreme where they have 100 or more on a ballot initiatives, and then you would never get through the voting, you know, thing. But I know we're a small county, but I just think that if we open that up to people circulating petitions for different types of things, we can have people coming, we would open ourselves up to having activists want to come into our county and start passing, or not passing, but trying to get an initiative put together that, and it's always a good sounding group. It sounds like something that you would never ever vote against because it's so wonderful. They make a wonderful name, and then they want you to vote on this, and outside influence could come in, and I'm not saying from out of state necessarily, but other interests within our state. I look at all the activism going on in Fargo at this time, and I think, why wouldn't they want to come here and say, oh, what a wonderful place to start bringing our activism. Let's bring it to Ramsey County, because they have an initiative process, and we can find enough people, we can hire people to get enough people to put something on the ballot. And then if we, usually it's not presented completely honestly, and people think they're voting for something other than they are. And so to me, what I would recommend would be to return this to the committee and have them pointed just in the financial direction where it would make a lot of sense. You could adjust your budgets. You could maybe tax things that people would think that other people, you know, wouldn't need to be put on the property tax rolls. And so to me, I would recommend sending it back to the committee, targeting it more specifically to the financial part, and leave all the other extraneous, is what I would call it, things out of it. And then let the people decide, is it really something that we want to talk about for taxation? Or is it completely changing the way we operate as a commission? So that's my point. I thought it was an excellent discussion, and I enjoyed hearing everybody, you know, their points. But those are the things that I kind of gathered out of it after I attended that meeting.
Not to put words in your mouth, sort of listening through your concerns again this evening, it sounds to me like you're somewhere between neutral and potentially even favorable on the document, save for the initiative and referral provision. If that were not in the document, is that something that you then would be comfortable with? Just for my own curiosity.
Pretty much, but I guess I don't see how we would actually need to change what we're doing right now. You know, see what I'm saying? The initiative and referendum process to me opens up a whole can of worms that I don't think we need to go down that road. But, well, I did have a question on number 4. And it says, and I remember that night you said, or not you specifically, I'm saying in general the discussion was, I'm not targeting anyone. It says the elected officers of the county treasurer, recorder, auditor, sheriff, and state's attorney shall remain intact as elected positions. And the thought was, people like to vote, you know, let's give them lots of things to vote for. And then someone said, well, there's a lot of times only one candidate, you know, so why do we vote when we only have one candidate? But my question would be to the people on the committee, are those only elected positions right now, or could they be appointed? And would that limit it to only elected?
So with the exception of the sheriff and state's attorney, which are ensconced in century code as elected positions, the treasurer, recorder, and auditor could be made appointed.
Right now, in the way the commission.
That one I'm not clear on.
So it is possible right now that
possible
one could appoint those.
You could, well, yes, the change would have to be made through resolution. That would be the easiest way, or the easiest, the simplest way to make it.
So if we felt at some point, you know, voting for one person wouldn't be necessary, we could have the commission say, why don't we just appoint somebody for those? And this was limited strictly to elected only.
Yes.
Is that something we would want to do? Limit ourselves to only elected officials?
I don't know if it's something necessarily you want to not do or not do, but that was what we heard from the people, that they wanted to continue to elect those officials. Now, from the standpoint of personally, I can speak for myself, I can't speak for everybody else, obviously. Sitting in this chair, I wouldn't feel comfortable as a commissioner with the power to use the resolution process to change an elected official to an appointed official when we've been electing that official for as long as this county has been a county. I would want to ask the people, plain and simple. Because if we're gonna take away an elected official, the people should be asked, do you want to take away an elected official and turn them into an appointed official, or maybe combine an office? In that situation, this document ensconces the fact that they are elected, but it does not preclude the fact that you can go and ask the people to make a change and then make them either appointed by the county commission or combine an office like auditor and treasurer together. It makes no change there. That's just my personal opinion. I honestly don't think that toolbox legislation portion of it, from a resolution perspective, is a fantastic provision in law. That's just my personal opinion. I think that if we're gonna make a change that drastic, when we've been essentially voting for these people for 130 years, that we should ask the people for that change.
I agree.
And so under this provision essentially, and we could have written it a little differently, I don't deny that fact, but it does not preclude us from, in the future, a commission saying, well, maybe the treasurer and the auditor should be one position, or maybe we should have those appointed positions. Well, then you would just ask the people for the change as an addition.
So you would
An
have to
amendment to
go
the
through the
whole-
process to amend it.
Yes, right now we would technically have to do that, but like I said that evening, I think, I can't speak for everyone on the commission, but when we had this discussion in regards to the recorder's position, the feeling in the room I got was that if we were going to make a change, we probably would want to ask the people if that change would be something they would want us to make.
Someone asked a question about combining offices, and then your response was people like to vote. So
Yeah.
we'll just keep it voting, and not include that.
I can understand, and we've, like I said, we've had that question from somebody who sat on a previous oral charter committee back in, I believe, the 90s. Might have sat on the second one as well, about that question portion of it, and I don't necessarily disagree that the flexibility would be reasonable, but I still, at least personally, don't feel that the change would be a prudent one without asking the electorate.
And that, and I agree. And that's my feeling is that if you were gonna make that change, you would just amend the charter to reflect that. But I also feel like that's true if parts of the charter end up not working the way that we had hoped that they would. If something like initiative or referendum were being abused, they could be amended out of the charter. Or the charter could be repealed. It takes a simple majority vote to do it, either one.
It could be a hell of a lot of disruption before you get it removed.
There hypothetically could be, but there's other charters that have been enacted for years and they've never had the initiative portion of it abused. I mean, there are other.
We had higher standards.
Yeah, we set the standards higher than any other charter.
Every single one of the standards that you had to jump through in this charter were much higher, both for on the county commission side for budgeting with taxes, the new taxes, and on the, way more stringent on the initiative and referral. We set the bar very high.
Yeah, very. I mean, and the discussion that's being had right now is a discussion, as we spoke about at the meeting last week, that we had long discussions at the committee level about should this be something that we should include in the chart. And we talked and we discussed and we looked at it, and this is what we came to. For better or worse, this is what we came to as a committee. There were things that went into the charter that I didn't necessarily agree with as a committee member, who voted against, but that was what went into as a basic document. The majority ruled, and that's what went in.
Yeah, I guess I agree on a personal level, and I said this at the public hearing too. I think that a lot of these positions for which the county commission is supposed to have oversight, really should allow the county commission to have oversight, which they don't if there's two elected officials, because what am I gonna tell you? What am I gonna do to hold you accountable? People have to hold you accountable. And that, could be a disruption that could last multiple years. If you had a, say an auditor, and we're glad we have a better one than that, but that decided not to really show up to work. And then really your only option is to see if the governor will recall them, and that very rarely happens.
I can't remember the last time.
Well, I don't see a lot of,
Sheriffs have got recall, not long ago.
Yeah, sure. Takes a lot.
Go ahead.
sorry, I don't see our county clamoring for change, because I think we elect our county commissioners and we trust you to do the work of the commission, of the county. And so I just don't see why we would have to have a completely new document, this whole new system here. It's not really a new system, but this whole new way of governing, just to be able to have a different way of budgeting. It sounds to me, we would like to have a different way to budget. Do we have to completely change the way we, well, not the way we operate, but the charter that we operate under? I haven't seen any reason to come to a county commission meeting saying you guys aren't doing your job right, and I want to recall this and I want to petition that, because good and well, if something happens the way that we're operating right now, you will hear about it. But,
Thank you.
Pardon?
Thank you.
And I'm not saying you're not doing a good job.
You're one of the next ones that has it, y'all.
I'm just saying, if there's such a thing as a targeted home rule, I don't even know what it would look like, but I heard it discussed that evening. You could target it towards the budget process and how you want to do that part, but we don't need to have the initiative and referendum and all those things.
I think the simplest reason, I know the simplest reason I'm in favor is how Burley and Morgan County built their jail, joint jail down there between those two counties.
But that was a target.
What they did, they both passed a home rule charter. Now they have the ability, which they did have the ability, and they put a sales tax on, to fund Burley, Morgan County Jail. Brand new facility. That's how they fund it. That's what I'm in favor of, is having that ability to do it. But the only way you can do that is have a home rule charter. But then you have to have another vote of the people for that specific project and for that specific tax to go on to pay for that tax, that building. You're not using property taxes, you use sales tax. And that's what they did. And it's been very, very beneficial for those two counties. Very beneficial. Mandan right now, Morgan County, they're slashing every budget they have in the county by 10%, including wages. Burley County is not giving any cost of living, and they were at 3%. They're not giving any of that. They're giving step. But Morgan County is slashing every department in their county by 10%.
And not to, I hope you don't get the impression of throwing your words back at you, but I agree that the county commission is elected to represent the people and make decisions on behalf of the people. And as twice now, having been the chairman of the Home Rule Charter Committee, I believe that that's exactly what I've been doing, is trying to improve the county on behalf of people. In my view, trying to make the county better, which of course we may disagree on whether or not that's actually what it's accomplishing. I feel that is the work that I've been doing and that I was, elected to do, is to make the county more flexible and responsive and future focused. And I think that home rule accomplishes that. So I guess that would be my response to sort of your thought process, which isn't to say that I'm trying to toss off responsibilities back to the people or muddy the waters, but rather I just want to make sure that the next 130 years of this county we're capable of meeting any challenge that could come up in that amount of time. And I think that having a home rule charter that can be amended, that can be changed, that can adapt, rather than us needing to constantly be running back and forth to the state and begging them to change something or do something, when we could potentially have that power for ourselves through home rule. That to me is probably the strongest argument over the long term for why it's beneficial.
Well, I kind of see one of the big underlying things is you have no drive from the people. We're talking about let the people. Your first one, you had members. The second one, you had to beg and borrow to get members on the board. You've had meetings. There's no outside people other than commission. And I don't want to use that word, but there's no underlying, just commissioners. That's all it's pushing us. There's no There's no people coming from all over the city and all over the county going, we need to do this. It's just us. And I just really have a hard time, you know. You had a meeting, you had nobody at your meeting. So is it that nobody cares, or what? I don't understand why we're just pushing this and there's nobody there pushing with you. There's just nobody there.
Well, I mean, I guess I'd ask you what meeting you've been in the last, you know, your entire tenure that has been, you know, well attended.
Well, when taxation comes up, the people show up. When things of importance to them, they show up. I mean, put a hog farm in, man. You'll have this building full tomorrow. The LEC, this building's been full. The people come when they want interest.
Well,
there's just nobody. There was three
but
people.
to me, what I'm hearing you say is that people show up when they're pissed, and clearly home rule is not pissing people off.
No, but they don't care. Well,
I mean, they care that it came within 47 votes of winning.
What we have works.
You know, I mean, you're right. It does work.
Yeah.
You know, and that doesn't mean that the argument in favor of home rule is less for that. In my view, it just means that, hey, look, you know, what we have works. What we could have would work better. But
you don't have any outside influence pushing that.
Well, because nobody in the community has read Century Code and knows what home rule even is.
Yeah.
But if you go back and look at the other boards that have tried it, they had people on the boards. There was interest there. There's just no
Yeah,
interest.
but it was always served by the county commission.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a commission-driven beginning,
Yeah.
and
But there's been no bill behind it.
I mean, my question is, what do you fashion that would look like, I guess? It would be my question.
It would be a citizens-led
Yeah.
led committee,
Absolutely.
and not one that's made up of commissioners and led by a commission chair and.
And that's fine.
Because when we sit in meetings, whether we intend to or not, we, as commissioners, people are kind of take our lead. And whether we're in that leadership role or not, they see us there as leaders of that committee, of that, and that may not be our intent, but, you know, so it's not a citizens-driven committee. It no longer becomes that if we're a part of that committee.
Okay.
And then, like he said, you know, the outside influences could come in and push for things, and next thing you know, you have things going on here that the core group of Ramsey County did not want. I mean, and granted, yes, you have to listen to what the people say, but sometimes things just get pushed along that maybe shouldn't get pushed along. And if you guys could have came and said, hey, we had 35 people at this meeting, and yeah, they were all for it, I maybe you could change my vote, but you had 3. 6 outside influence people?
Yeah.
Okay. I was told 3.
You just said 7 at the beginning of the conversation.
But are we talking you?
No, we're talking outside people that were not on the committee, that were citizens that came to the hearing, that were interested to learn what a home rule charter does and does not do.
Well, I was told 3. That was my mistake.
Well, I mean, when we did, because it's the same charter as in 2018, I'd say we had,
Yeah.
overall, we must have had 50 people at the different meetings that we had.
I mean, when we had our hearing in 2016, we had quite a few people at the hearing. Comparatively, it was probably 2018.
Okay, so you had 50 at that one. Now you have 6.
Well, I think
There's no drive. There's
I
no.
don't know if it's a drive issue as much as we're living in a time where how many people want to come to a meeting right now. I mean, I wouldn't honestly come to a meeting unless I had Zoom.
They could be
If we allowed that, we had that option.
Really, in Martin County, both counties had both questions on the same ballot. Whether you wanted to have a home rule and the sales tax. We funded that. Both counties, and they both passed overwhelmingly.
How broad was their home
And that was
rule?
the only thing they had in their home rule, was the one.
Well,
Morton.
One of them had a couple.
Burley was very condensed, Morton's was quite broad,
That's
actually,
right.
Morton's was probably broader than the one that we're possibly looking at.
You're right.
Each one had a different approach to how to draft the home.
One. Really was just the one item.
Yes, essentially.
Grand Forks County, that ethanol plant, they'd have the home run. And that's all. Grand Forks County sold $90 million in bonds to build that ethanol plant in Grand Forks. They're gonna use beef pulp for the drive for the making ethanol. Potato waste, all the things they've been throwing back out in the field, throwing away, now they're gonna make alcohol. Very beneficial.
Just have a question for the committee. How many of the home rule charters in the state of North Dakota are complete home rule charters like this and not targeted ones?
About half.
I would say probably more than half.
Yeah.
The majority of them have some form or fashion of different portions of this. The ones that I would say are very limited are Burley and probably Steel.
Well, definitely the most limited.
The most
We're enacting a sales tax for this.
What was the second one now?
Steel. They have a 1 cent sales tax for infrastructure roads.
I mean, but there's a whole range of them. I mean, Cass County's is like a light novel.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all over the place. They were written to represent, the counties that they were written for.
Yeah.
And, we had tons of meetings and diverse, I mean, part of the reason that we didn't have more meetings this time around was because it was very first meeting out of the gate, the committee said, we're comfortable with the document. Let's take it straight to a hearing and put it back on the ballot, basically. Otherwise we could have had a longer process. So. Well, in any case, I'd make the motion that we put it on the ballot.
Yeah, I have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second it.
We have a second. Further discussion on the second. Motion, excuse me, further discussion on the motion.
Just one more comment from me. I think we're just trying to fix things that don't need to be fixed. We're looking for a solution that, I don't think there's a problem. We're looking for a solution that there isn't a problem for. If we were talking about the budget and how things were, specifically, I can understand that part of it, but the rest of it to me just opens up a can of worms. It's not a panacea, it's a Pandora's box, in my opinion. With the activism going on around the state, we might find ourselves involved with activism here that we don't want. But that's my opinion, and I won't say more.
That's fine.
I just want to say one thing publicly. I'm not in favor of building a new jail. Don't give me that. Put that label on me.
I know.
But I want that.
Good
I want that ability to do that in the future for the other commissions. Because down the road it will have to be done. But I'm not saying now, and I'm not saying 10 years or either. But I don't know for sure how long it will be.
Well, that's the thing, right? If we put this in place, if nothing's wrong, then nothing will change. If this goes into motion and there's really nothing wrong with the county, then presumably, nobody's going to initiate anything new because there's nothing wrong. And I mean, there won't be any. So in other words, what I'm saying is, if we put it into place now, it's the pure time to ask for it because it just gives the tools there for the future. It doesn't drastically change anything right now, at least in my view. So.
I believe there's businesses that are looking to invest in areas in North Dakota. And I believe they'll come to counties that have the home rule in place. If you don't have it in place, then they just look for one that does. Devil's Lake, we have a lake and fishing and whatever else, but we don't have a great deal of other things to offer. So I believe we need to have that home rule there. So if there is a business in the future that wants to invest in Ramsey County, then we'll be ready. We don't have to go back to the people and ask for this passage. But like I said, you need a specific project, and you gotta put X amount of mills on, what you're gonna charge, cents per dollars. And you can only have a certain length of time for that tax. If it's up in 5 years, then it's over, 10 years or whatever. I think Morton and Burley County, I think it's 30 years, 20 years. It's quite a period of time. And they're collecting enormous sales tax, way more than they need to pay. Way more.
Further discussion?
I guess I don't understand that about businesses coming to counties because they have home rule or don't have home rule.
If the home rule's in place and you need to subsidize the business in a way with sales tax, then all you have to do is sell that sales tax to the people as a commission. If this home rule is not in place, you have to do like Burley did, sell the home rule and the sales tax at the same time, which they did very, very easily.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Further questions, discussion on the motion on the floor?
I think using a pretty broad brush to paint a pretty of what we want to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Jeff.
I think it paints is using a really broad brush. Maybe further than what we need. You know, do we need all 10 articles and do Article 9 and 10?
I guess it depends on the question of scope. That's what it comes down to. I mean, you know, the committee in going through the process felt that this was the proper scope for the document. I guess if that's something that is you're not comfortable with or disagree with, that's completely understandable. It was his opinion or part of life. That's just how it is, and that's okay. I take no offense. We crafted a document. If it's something that you're not comfortable with, that's whatever.
Well, yeah, and the whole document represents a compromise, right?
Yeah.
And actually, it was a series of compromises that took place over months and months and months of hard discussion. You know, that document was not written by any one person for any one reason. But neither was the Constitution, so.
There's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of documents. There's a lot of stuff we talked about that didn't make it into the document. It would have made it even more broad than it is. It actually contained more than it was in some of the things we discussed. So there's a lot of different ideas for a lot of discussion.
You know, I think the initial scope was set by the 1991 document.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's
what we worked on.
That's what we started with. Hey, this is what they felt was valuable in 1991. Do we still feel it's valuable today? And we did that. We went section by section on that, and then we looked at what all of the current charters have in them. And a lot of them, it was similar things, but with updated language, or more succinct language. And we adopted the language that we felt accomplished what the compromise of the whole committee wanted to accomplish in the fewest words in the clearest way possible. And that's eventually what came out of it, was that document. So, but like I said, I think, at least for me, and this is only for me, if home rule gets put on the ballot again this year and it fails, well, now I feel like we know. At least we really know. And I won't keep pushing for it forever. I'm not going to try to put it on every ballot that I'm ever a commissioner for, but I do think that because this is a presidential year and election year, and people have had more time to digest that document from 2018, I think it's worth the asking again. And I don't see, it doesn't cost us any more to put it on the ballot, than to run a ballot without it. I don't see a problem with asking the question of the people again. And if it fails again, well, so be it, now we know. But that's just my view.
Further discussion? The only thing I wanted to add, try to collect my thoughts on it here is, I think, to speak to your point, Mark, about commission-led versus citizen-led, I think the situation that we're currently in, and that it's a more of a commission-led document, stems from the fact that there isn't one specific thing that we're asking for. There isn't one specific thing that the community, the county as a whole sees as a thing that we necessarily have to have right this minute, like a new building project of some sort. So when you're talking about the amorphous concept of flexibility in the future versus I need this today, it changes how the drive comes for the document. And sitting on this commission for almost 6 years now, I see there are things that we do really well. There are things that we could do better. There are things that we should try to foresee come. And that's kind of where this is for me. Are there things in there that could make it more broad than necessarily we want? I'm not going to deny that that's a possibility, of course it is. But at the end of the day, the people of Ramsey County sit down and make a decision who to vote for to put into these offices, who to vote for to vote for the county commission, as well as all of the other elected offices we have. And things like ordinances, referrals, initiatives. If we don't trust the people that vote for us, how can we trust anything? Plain and simple. They vote for us. So basically we're saying is, we don't trust the people to have the power to vote for something that could make a change for them, but we want them to vote for us. And that's where the initiative portion of it comes from, at least in my mind. And that's how I wrap my head around it. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's going to continue to be perfect. Could it be a problem? Don't deny that fact. I can't see what's going to happen 20 years in the future. But to me, it's a reasonable expectation of a document, and that's the discussion we had at that level, and that's why I still look at it. And like we said, if the people look at it and they don't think there's value to it and they don't think it's necessary now, it doesn't preclude the county from asking for it later when maybe there's a specific thing that we need to ask for. But in sitting on this board for 6 years, I look at it and say additional flexibility in the future would be very reasonable and could be very necessary at some point. And I would rather have that flexibility in place than have our backs against the wall, and we need that flexibility. And that's why. Further discussion. I said it kind of get my thoughts.
Is today the drop dead date to decide on this?
Unless we were going to hold a special meeting, because we have to have it decided by 1st of September, correct?
August 31st.
August 31st, I'm sorry.
4 p.m.
I was a day off, I'm sorry. 65 days, 64 days previous to election day at 4 p.m. is when it has to be decided. So we would have to call a special election, or a special meeting previous to our first meeting in September if we wanted to.
And I want to apologize for the abbreviated amount of time we've had on this round of it. It all had to do with coronavirus. I mean, we're blaming
We're blaming them for everything else, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just saying, when we empowered the committee and selected it, and then it was basically like the next week that coronavirus started popping up, and then we were shutting everything down. And I mean, it didn't feel right to try to have a meeting with so much uncertainty and everything else. And by the time the scope and scale of the thing, was becoming clear, we had already empowered a committee. So the committee had to meet and try to accomplish its business. And I mean, it did, but I can understand why people would feel uncomfortable with it. And that might be part of the reason why the document is exactly the same as it was in 2018. There really just was not enough time to do justice to an amendment process to it. But again, we weren't able to plan for a pandemic. We've just done the best we could with the time we've had. So.
Does that answer the question, Jeff? Or
It does. Maybe did the committee think about, given the circumstances with the virus and the limitations of holding public meetings and public gatherings, delay asking the commission to put it on the ballot?
That wasn't the recommendation that came out of the committee, and the committee has been dissolved.
I realize that.
But, you know, the other part about it is when we empowered the committee in the first place, I don't think that of those commissioners who felt that there was merit to home rule, that anyone felt strongly that they hoped the document would end up amended from its current form at that time. At least that was my perception. And when the charter committee met, there was not any kind of pressure amongst the committee members to make amendment to it. You know, everybody had read through it and said, I think this is a good document. So.
The scope of the discussion at the first meeting was essentially, why do we believe, or why does the committee, I should say, believe that it failed by such a close margin? Was it a matter of people not knowing what the document does, so then they would, you know, inevitably not vote or vote no, because you generally vote no when you don't know what something will do? Or was it a matter of, you know, that the document wasn't in good enough shape, and the committee, I believe unanimously, decided that it was more of a need to inform and educate the public more as to what it would or would not do, and then it was unanimous that it should be moved to a hearing, and unanimous that it should come to the commission for recommendation to fill it out. But I don't recall if we had a specific discussion as to delaying it. Okay, further discussion on the motion. Further comments? Views? Okay, I'm gonna give one more chance. Okay, hearing none, roll call please.
Brown,
Aye.
Olson,
Nay.
Brett,
Nay.
Wakefield,
Aye.
Lightcon.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. And I would like to say, I would like to say thank you too for the time that you spent coming to the hearing and everything and your concerns, and it made for, like you said, it made for really interesting and robust debate.
So good points, good points, really good points.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
I wish we had more citizens that would show up and ask questions, because it makes for better documents. It makes for better.
Well, on Thursday night, on Thursday night, I had a very interesting, informative discussion I thought you put on.
Thank you. Okay, visitors and delegations. Anybody on the old Zoom? The old, what do I call it back there? Okay, you got nobody. Do we have any announcements? Yeah, I don't think I have anything other than social services meeting got moved to next week. So we
We
don't
got
have
to make
anything.
it move to next week,
Yes, not this week, it's next week.
Wednesday.
Yes, our director is moving her daughter into college or something. So we're next Wednesday. No,
She's gonna let her go.
huh?
She's gonna let her go.
I guess. No information on
Don't
that.
tell her, don't say I said.
You're on camera now, so,
She's walking.
I'll take her meeting.
verbal. Yeah. I don't know if we're doing any meetings. Anybody announcements?
I have one question, but our state's turned out, so I don't know, maybe Candy has an answer. Has anything ever been said about the opioid lawsuit? Does anybody know anything about that? I mean, like, we went with these lawyers and we've heard nothing.
Actually, I thought that the other day too, when I saw something about opioids, I thought, what would have happened with that thing?
Well, my wife got a whole bunch for her surgery and I thought, hey, I wonder whatever happened with that. So,
Question.
She didn't use them, did she?
yeah, two.
You had to put them in the little charcoal bag.
I just have to put them up. Kind of hope she doesn't watch this. Just
Okay,
don't have it.
that's good question. I'll make a little bit of that. That's good. Okay, seeing no further announcements, we are adjourned.
And the jail's full.
There, at the wrong side up. At the side of the buffer on there. 97?
Well, have a good evening, everybody. You guys got on. Good time.